This is White Centipede Noise Podcast, where we give language to noise. I'm Oscar Brummel, and today my guest is Paul Knowles, the man behind the cult UK 90s noise project Dachise, as well as the DIGITARIAT. Paul now works under the name Thread's Original Soundtrack, with a release out now on Tribe Tapes and more on the way. This is part one of the episode. To listen to the full-length episode, go to patreon.com/whitecentipedeNoise. Once you do, you'll get access to this and other full-length podcast episodes, Patreon-exclusive WCN TV content, our Discord community, discounts at White Centipede Noise, and much more. A special thank you to Klaus and all other Patreon supporters who make White Centipede Noise podcast possible. This episode is sponsored by Rural Isolation Project. Visit ruralisolationproject.com or ruralisolationproject.bandcamp.com, or look out for them at a distro near you. All right, Paul.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to White Centipede Noise Podcast here at WCN Studios in Potsdam.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming by. This is cool. What does the name Dachise or Dachise mean?
So at the time, I was just about starting to become aware of experimental music, and there was so much from Europe where there'd be band names and titles which I simply couldn't understand the words.
Yeah.
And that was quite mysterious for me, and I quite liked the idea of naming myself in that way, that I would have something that seemed so abstract. Of course, these names and titles were not meant to be abstract.
They were just in German or something.
They were just in other languages. But so for me, it was simply I took some words and what we also know as cutting up. I sliced up the words, put them back together again until at random I came up with a word that I liked the look of, and that I would like to picture on some mail order catalogue of experimental music, and I settled on that. I was told, however, later that the name sort of means in German roof eyes. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, Dach is roof.
Yeah.
I don't know what ISE would mean. It would mean like eyes, but yeah. It's interesting because it has a German
sound to it.
German connotation. And actually, one question I had for you kind of down the line, but you seem to have quite a German connection with a lot of your earlier work. You worked with Tochnit Aleph a number of times. Yeah. Tonspur.
Yeah.
Was there a reason for that German connection?
Well, I think another thing to say about noise in the 90s was noise and power electronics kind of was so much enmeshed in the 90s. So like a label would quite often have a power electronics record, maybe a Condom record, and then a Mesbah record come out following it. And there were a lot of labels, a few labels in Germany that were doing that sort of thing.
Sure.
And so some of these labels were a bit industrial, a bit power electronics as well.
Right.
And these genres were not so well defined back then.
Right, and also wasn't so compartmentalized. I think that's a common criticism of kind of the noise scene today, and what was maybe so what worked, what made the noise scene of the 90s what it was is like things weren't so compartmentalized into sound and ideology and approach, and it was, you had labels like Tonspur was a good example of a really eclectic, diverse label that was, serving all sorts of different ideas and sounds.
But I also wonder if at the time we didn't see a clear difference between them all. Like power electronics was back then perhaps noise with vocals,
right?
So a lot of these things were together. We would often play on the same bills, we'd
Right.
be on the same record labels. And so for me, I look at that period as there been some really amazing labels around at the time who were covering that sort of thing. I think in addition to those you mentioned, Praxis Dr. Behrman, I thought brought out some amazing records, both in packaging and sound. Even Ant Zen, which is such an industrial label, was occasionally putting out some power electronics and noise back then.
Yeah. But I think today there's not as, I mean, today it's much more compartmentalized in Germany. You really don't have many German noise labels today that are really like kind of in that direction. You have a lot of, heavy electronics, power electronics, stuff like that. But that kind of, that 90s crossover is not really to be found much in Germany these days.
Yeah. I think that now that these things are quite separated, but that has with it other virtues. There's each of these genres are able to focus quite sharply on what they're doing.
Yeah.
So these each of these genres are bringing out great work.
Yeah. What was the impetus to start this project in the mid 90s? And what is it, 95? What was going on in your life?
Wow. So to go far back, I was first interested in sort of alternative music at a very young age, 10, 11, 12, something like that. And then I also grew up with quite unusual for a working class household. My dad had a lot of music equipment from his interests. So there was his mixer desk, his 4-track, he had some effects and he had some synthesizers. And my brother was getting interested in guitar, so he had guitar pedals and amplifiers. Me, I just had a tape deck and the radio, and I combined all these things together because these things were there for me, and I really wanted to make the music that I was starting to hear when I was getting further into the more experimental and noisy sort of music. I was fortunate to be able to do that at the time because, it's not like now that we can do things on laptops and that sort of thing.
Right.
Also, I don't know if I'm right about this, but I think that at the time there wasn't a sense that these things were possible and could be done. It wasn't so much common knowledge that if you link that you can simply put a microphone through a guitar pedal. People back then thought guitar pedals were for guitars, and they didn't know that when you turn the tape round on the 4-track, it plays backwards and all these sort of things.
Yeah.
These were things that when I was doing it, it felt like I was being incredibly ingenious.
Yeah.
And anybody else that was making experimental music was using some kind of mythical, better equipment in a proper way.
Yeah.
And me, I was just making do with what I had.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, looking back on it, I was fortunate to have what I had.
Yeah.
It was unusual to have those sort of things in the household. And and that's really how it started. I also liked how in that scene, there seemed to be kind of a DIY aspect.
Yeah.
So, you can make your own tapes. You can just send a tape to a label, ask them, will you do a small edition for me? And they did. And as you mentioned, it was really thrilling to be able to do that with labels and people from overseas as well.
Yeah.
That was quite exciting for someone living in a small northern town as a teenager, you know. Yeah, it was just really wanting to make music like I was hearing.
How did you first, I mean, you mentioned kind of getting into experimental stuff through alternative music, but how did you first kind of cross over into that DIY, highly experimental, noisy underground scene? Because, you know, you have your earliest tapes on some pretty notable, but very obscure also labels that, you know, you don't really just come across just by accident.
It was just one thing leads to another. I mean, like when I was about 12 years old, 11 years old, I was listening to John Peel a lot, and he'd announce fanzine writers' addresses over the radio, and you could send them an envelope with a stamp and a return address and a few quid, you know, taped between two pieces of cardboard.
Yeah.
And then you'd get your magazine, and then you'd find out about bands that you didn't know and music that you didn't know. And you would imagine what some of this music was like as well, because you couldn't just, you know, like turn the laptop on and have a little look that way. So, so yeah, there was a lot of imagining how hard and heavy some music could be.
Yeah.
And sometimes music wasn't as wild as you'd imagined, because you'd think it could get further, and further and further. And sometimes the way things described in your mind, it would be like really wildly intense. And when it wasn't, that was another part of this. I want to make it sound like the way that I thought it would sound, based on what I was reading about. So yeah, a lot of it, I think fanzines was quite a big part of it.
The tape that I mentioned on Tonspur, So Much Love to Give. Do you remember recording that one?
Yeah.
What are we hearing on that one?
So it's made up of a recording that I'd done using a couple of guitar pedals, a distortion and a looper. And something was making the droning tone sound. I can't remember what. It might have been a synthesizer. And I took that tape and sped up and stopped it and slowed down and stopped it. And where it sounds like it's playing chords, that's just the fast, slow, and medium speeds.
Okay.
The tape was also turned round backwards, so that it was playing in the other direction on the 4-track, and again stopping and starting. Also in that setup, I had a tape recorder, a Yamaha tape recorder, which I really miss since it's broken, which had the most fantastic mute button, which sounds like such a simple thing, but it was a beautiful, sharp cutting mute button that you could play as though it was an instrument. It wouldn't click on and off.
Right.
You would go,
yeah.
And that was a big part of it as well.
Interesting. So it sounds like you really were, you know, experimenting in the pure sense of just, you know, having these items, thinking, what can I do with them, and making something. You didn't have like frame of reference for other types of noise musicians doing certain things with certain tools, or did you? Did you have contact to other artists or musicians who were also working in this way that kind of gave you ideas or inspiration or feedback?
I was in touch a little bit with some other artists, but it was we never spoke about how it was made. It never came up, and I wondered if that was like the norm then, that it was kind of each of our own little secrets. But nobody really showed me what to do. No, I didn't get a lot of tips from anyone else for making sounds.
I have a question here from the Discord from Henry Mallard, which kind of pertains to this. Is what was this is a very open question, but what was the climate of the 90s noise, especially in Britain?
Climate of the noise scene in Britain.
Yeah, in the 90s. Like what was the correspondence like? Were you going to a lot of shows? Was there a lot of just what was the...
I honestly think it's easier to see shows now. And back then I would have to travel outside of town to see shows. We used to go up to, because I was in a small town, Harrogate at the time, we would often go to Leeds and Bradford, and even went to Newcastle a few times to see shows. There was a good series of shows at the 1 in 12 Club. There was the Termite Club as well,
right,
up north.
That.
And that would move from venue to venue. I think Mike from Condom was quite involved in that group that put it together. And so for live shows, there was that.
Yeah. I think of noise being mostly solitary. Most of what I love about noise and the things that, I really kind of connected with it early on had to do with the listening experience, the packaging, and the correspondence with people internationally. Because how often, particularly if you're living in a small town or a small city, how often are you going to see or meet people that have the same interest? But if you find the right networks, you can correspond with people who have a really shared, passionate interest in this. So what about that in terms of like correspondence? Were there people you were corresponding with on a regular basis who kind of were early allies or early encouragers or friends that, kind of built into something more?
I think certainly a very encouraging for me when I started was first of all the first tape that I made some flyers and I brought them along to Soviet France show. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but Ben came up to me and he said, "Is this your flyer?" And there I was, like 18-year-old kid at this show, sort of, I'm gonna get told off, And he gave me some money and said, "Yeah, this is my address. Please send me a tape."
Wow!
So that was the first person to buy a tape from me.
Wow!
And then mine is a bit hazy about where the correspondence, in details. But then not long afterwards, I got a phone call at home from Mike, and it turned out to be Mike from Condom.
Wow.
There was a show in Bradford, Mike, Condom, Smell and Quim, and the Haters, and the Haters couldn't make it, and I was asked, could I replace the Haters for my first ever live show?
Wow.
And and then Dave from Smell and Quim phoned up like later in the week and was chatting as well, and that was really encouraging, when you're young and starting out, and somebody whose records you're listening to at home is, calling you and asking you to play live. It's really good.
That's very cool. How did the show go?
Yeah, I think it went well.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was very, very exciting show all around.
As you might have heard, White Centipede Noise Distro has reopened. We're based in Potsdam, Germany, doing everything out of the shop here, focused on distributing noise around Europe and the UK, primarily focusing on imports from the States and from Canada. So this week we have up a pre-order from a label called Bitter Lake, doing 3 reissue LPs of K2 albums. His earliest stuff, Remusic, Demise Symphonica, and Requiem in the Sun, as well as a pre-order for the huge batch of Fucked Up Noisecore and Noise from Reanimated Miscarriage. In addition to that, I'm going to tell you about all the stuff that's been coming into the store lately as we first opened. A bunch of stuff from Fusty. Got the new LP from Xiphoid Dementia, LP from Savage Gospel, LP from Nod, LP from Mortito, LP from Suspect Unknown, and from the Detergent Heretic Grail collaboration. Got stuff from New Forces, Action Discipline tape, Shredded Nerve and Form Hunter CD, new Green Tea album, Richard Ramirez Volume 2 box set, awesome packaging stuff, as always, from Presser tape, Neural tape packaged with broken glass, Cementation Anxiety with really great etching on the cover, Rush Falconer, Circuit Wound CD, and Flesh Developer CD. Got stuff from Throne Heap, new title from Desolation Colony and Kate Rissek, as well as the Incipientium and Sewer Election collab CD. Bunch of stuff from Hospital, Cocksuckers Damned to Hell, Alberic, and Prurient collab, Alberic, Nebo Infrared box set, some LPs from DSM-3, Skin Crime Triple LP, Slogan Double LP. Also releases from Bent Window, this Bradung LP and the tape version of it, Mouths Agape tape, Vincent Dallas tape, Oracle Chamber, and the Savage Gospel CD. Bunch of stuff from Phage tapes, MIA and Infibulation, IRM LP, Am Not LP, MIA and Mass Marriage LP, Rudolph Eber and Controlled Death LP, CDs from Caligula 031, Terracell Unit, the Rita collaboration, Gabriele Giuliani, the Roman Torment reissue CD, double CD, 7-inch from Makita Power Electronics, and Defective. Also got the Greg Scott book and CD put out by Neural Operations, as well as the Pain Factory DVD set. And last but not least, another Fusty title that I forgot to mention, the epic David Gilden 18 CD box set. Texas Pillbox. Patreon supporters get a 5% off discount off everything, including the WCN Bazaar. That's a section of the website where we are putting up secondhand items from the collection here, slowly adding them to the shop. They're mixed in with the distro. You can go to whitecentipedeNoise.com to check out everything that's in stock, as well as the pre-orders that are now active. Those will run for a few days till towards the end of the week when I'll place the final orders. Now back to the episode with Paul.
Another question I have actually from Max Eastman, who you know, that pertains to that is, where is it? I'll paraphrase. What were your worst, best, and most memorable live shows?
Oh, wow. Well, let's not put them into those categories, but let's talk about some particularly remarkable ones. White House hadn't played for 5 or 10 years, and we were asked to open for their first show since that length of time. It was me and my friend Ian, who used to be involved in Academy 23, and he walked back in to the venue before it had opened, and he said, "They're queuing round the block." And it was a big venue, the old Red Rose Club, and we often played there to be mostly empty.
Yeah,
but it was absolutely rammed that night. Yeah, kind of terrifying playing to such a large audience. Just put my head down and did it.
Just went in.
Worst, I've played some shows where I don't know, maybe I should have known better, but where you have your microphone through your pedal and it should be going through the amplifiers and sounding powerful.
Yeah.
And you can hear your own voice acoustically over how poor the sound level is.
Yeah.
Those shows are awful.
Yeah.
Really terrible.
Yeah.
Had a show where somebody from the front we were in the back of the pub, and somebody from the front of the pub came in and wanted to beat me up for what I was playing. I had to be held back.
What, just because it was so...
He was a big bloke as well.
Just because it was so noisy, or was there something specific that was bothering him?
Just didn't like it.
Just didn't like it.
Yeah. And sadly, a friend got punched that night by him. He was a big bloke.
Wow.
And played in Berlin once at the Stahlplatte Festival, and that was really good. It was incredible hospitality.
Cool.
You know, we had somewhere to stay. We were given, we were fed twice a day.
Yeah.
We had all this. We couldn't spend our money that we brought with us. You know,
Yeah.
It was just really, really good hospitality, and we stayed for the whole week and watched all the acts.
Cool.
It was really good.
Great.
Mm.
UK noise kind of has a reputation for being pretty wild. I've interviewed a number of fellows from the scene and ladies, and I know that they can get pretty wild. Some of those people. What did you do live? Are you a wild guy in a live setting? We've met today. You are very, polite and reserved and all that, but did you get, crazy like the Smell and Quim boys or that back in the day?
Yeah, a bit. I was a bit more physical back then.
Really?
With live shows,
Okay.
yeah. Hopefully not too confrontationally physical. But I would throw myself around quite a lot. That was perhaps a mix of excitement, alcohol, which I used to drink back then, and terror.
Yeah.
Like a feeling of terror, just like really, really throwing yourself into it, and like working off that nervous energy. Maybe that was part of it. It's funny, these days when I play, I'm much more in control and relaxed, and I'm concentrating on the sound a lot more. It's still a heavy sound. That's really what I'm going for, and hopefully it is a bit more powerful for that.
Yeah.
But I feel more relaxed on stage now.
Yeah.
Yeah, those few opportunities I get recently to play on stage, I've been a lot more relaxed and controlled. It feels better.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Mm.
I also feel personally that I used to drink all the time when I played live because I thought it would make me better and more loose and when I stopped doing it, when I started playing purely sober, it's like instantly 10 times better. Just the ability to perceive the sound, control it, focus on what you're doing. If you can relax your nerves, then you're good. I mean, it was kind of just a way to, relax nerves and kind of just feel like I could be free. But I think it's and I think for a lot of people, think playing drunk makes them better, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
You see a lot of people play and they're like sloppy, and you're like, yeah. Unless certain bands, it comes with the territory, and it's appropriate. But I think,
I think with something like Smell and Quim's stage show, it completely suits it.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of that is about the spectacle anyway,
right?
Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
But, and they do it so well.
Yeah. Of course, I would never want them to change their ways. There was also a question from Henry about working with self-abuse, and I also just was curious about you worked with a lot of interesting labels throughout the years. Self-abuse being one, Tochnit Aleph, also some of the more prominent, but also like some very interesting, kind of more obscure labels that were active in Europe and the UK around the time that are also, have great catalogs. How did you get in touch with self-abuse, for example, and how did that come about?
It was a lot like the same as a lot of it was back then. I'd find out about a label that I liked, wrote to them, asked them if they'd release, and they'd say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. His correspondence was always great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the connection to Tochnit Aleph? Because you did a few releases with them. And again, that's the German connection that I thought of. And you mentioned before we started that you did a little residency in Berlin, right? Is that any connection?
You mean about my student exchange?
Right. Yeah.
That was my first time in Berlin. I was here for 3 months on an Erasmus exchange program. While I was here, I actually got in touch with Tochnit Aleph, again, because I was interested in the way the early catalogue was forming. I liked the look of it. And Tochnit Aleph was still based in, I think, Mainz, near Frankfurt at the time. So we were not in the same city at that time. But we met the following year when I was at that Stahlpark festival. And when I was recording with Tochnit Aleph, we met quite a few times in person.
What can you tell me about the Vigilant label? Was that something you were involved in?
I appeared on Vigilant label quite a lot. They didn't do many releases, and I think I was on most of them.
Right.
It was a label from Scotland. Changed its name from, I think, Pylon Records to start with. Again, we met a few times.
Yeah.
Very supportive early on. He produced a proper CD for me.
Cool.
And I can't remember what other records he'd produced. I think he had a group called Abraxas that he was involved in that was kind of ritualistic type of music. The CD I did with him was originally we did it as a cassette, which I screen printed all the covers, and very poor quality screen printing as well. I did them all myself, cut them all with my my guillotine at home, and and that was called Twin Braids.
Yes.
And then we did it as a CD, professionally looking.
Yeah.
And quite happy with that CD.
Yeah.
Again, looking back on the CD, it's not a proper noise record. It's like it's got some very noisy bits, and then there's a lot of echoing and scratching and percussive parts. Again, because in those days, for me, I thought that was what would make a noise experimental piece.
Right.
And that I think nowadays, if somebody recorded something like that, it might seem a little bit disjointed, perhaps.
Well, those are noises, aren't they? I mean, I think those are noises, and it's on a album together, and it's noise. I know what you mean, that there is seemingly this expectation that things kind of are more uniform, I guess. But I think why not make an eclectic album? How do you classify how do you think about your music at this point of that era? Because your releases are quite different. I mean, you didn't really do the same thing over and over. From what I've heard, I can hear the spirit kind of going through it. That's similar, but sonically you did a lot of different things seemingly. How would you classify? Were you?
Well, I'm glad that you think that there's like my handwriting that kind of runs through it.
For sure.
And that is what I had hoped would carry it through and sort of join it all together, and it would allow me to and that thing would allow me to do different approaches each time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking back on it though, I think it was even though I'm quite happy with a lot of what was done, and some things I'm not so happy, but mostly I'm happy with it. It was definitely finding my way time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was trying to make my own music, try to find my way.
Yeah.
And again, as we've mentioned today, the guidelines of where genres start and finish, and what's considered to be norm and what's considered not to be the norm in these kind of underground genres of music, they were hazy back then.
Yeah.
And so one is trying to find one's own way.
Yeah.
During that, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I do like the focused approach of noise music these days. I do like when people really hone in on what they're doing, and it's not just they're just messing around, trying to find something that works. But I do think it is interesting and kind of crazy that we're talking about things like norms and genre and if something fits or not in something that is supposed to be, first of all, noise music and experimental music,
Yeah.
It kind of, I have mixed feelings. I come at it both ways, I think on the one hand, it should be much less, there should be much less of that. But on the other hand, I like when artists really know what they want.
Yeah.
And have a vision somehow and stick to it.
Yeah, I feel much more like that now with what I do now. I feel like I've set my own boundaries and somehow feel quite liberated within them to work within those boundaries. But as you say, it is quite funny that this is underground, very alternative, very non-commercial. And yes, now there is a lot of focus as well.
Yeah.
Which seems to be a bit self-contradictory.
Mm-hmm. What about the split with David Gilden? Were you in touch with David Gilden through that split, or was that set up by New Noise?
This is the end of part 1 of the episode with Paul. In the full version, we go on to discuss Thread's original soundtrack, raw noise techniques, gabber clubs and influence on the Digitariat, nuclear war, personal hobbies and interests, top 5s, and much more. You can watch or listen to the full episode at patreon.com/whitecentipedeNoise.